everyone, to Inside the Mind of an Artist. This is our third interview, and I am so pleased to have Topher Straus with us. We are going to be discussing how it is that a life well lived informs everything we do in a studio practice, in an art practice, in a creative practice, which brings us back to life. So welcome, Topher. I want to just say before he talks, Topher is born and raised in Denver, Colorado. He grew up spending time outdoors, hiking, skiing, camping, which really informs the work that he does now from what I see. He received a BFA from Syracuse University in New York in 1997. His first career was in directing documentary narrative films, which appeared in numerous film festivals, which took him to Los Angeles and later New Zealand. He's inspired by his own exploration of the outdoors, and he has a strong desire for environmental preservation. His large-scale paintings take an original approach to the depiction of iconic landscapes. His work blends photography with digital painting. And welcome, Topher. Tell us more about how the BFA carried you and what your BFA is in and how it all kind of moved forward for you.
First of all, I'm really excited to be here with you today. So thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
So, you know, it's amazing how everything leads to something, right? Especially when we're perceptive of that. So you asked, how did my BFA lead me into this? Well, growing up in Denver, I was actually on television in high school, and I did over 350 commercials. I won a Heartland Emmy before I was even 18, and that led me to have this desire to not be in front of the camera anymore. That wasn't for me, right? But to get behind the camera. So I looked into film schools, and one of the very best film schools then and still now is Syracuse University. So, you know, a Denver kid, I was like, I'm going to apply to Syracuse, and I got into Syracuse, and I didn't quite understand what I was getting into. Part of the entire freshman core curriculum at Syracuse to become a filmmaker was learning about art history, studio art, and all these things that I had never done in my life prior to being forced into being an artist. I was an athlete and an actor, and I didn't do any art. And I was thrown into my freshman core curriculum with people that had been producing art their whole, lives prior to that moment. And at first I'm like, how am I going to make it through this? And I was always, I'm a really big overachiever, and I'm used to like high marks. And all of a sudden, my freshman year at Syracuse, I am having a hard time with learning about shading and composition and color and balance and all these things that I understand now. And what I didn't understand was that having that blank canvas at that point in my life, and understanding that I had the freedom as an artist to do exactly what I wanted to do, how I wanted to do it, under the guidance of some amazing teachers and professors. By the end of my freshman year, I had become an artist.
Do you have a specific instructor that really left a mark on you?
I sure do. In fact, I was just trying to reach out to him. His name is James Ridlon.
James Ridlon, what did he do? What is his forte?
He was a professional athlete, professional football player. So I identified with him because he was not the typical artist, right? He kind of just found it and really fell in love with it, and I really understood, like, I really understood what he was trying to teach me and how he was trying to teach me it. and he took me aside, and he's like, Topher, you do it your own way, man. You can break the rules. You have a gift to be able to not understand all the preconceived notions of creating art. So do it your own way. And he helped to guide me along through that process. So James Ridlon is still teaching at Syracuse. And he really influenced me, and I really looked up to him.
You're really lucky to have that. I mean, there's so many artists that will go into undergrad school or even grad school, and they're making work on top of work where I think that's the wrong way of putting it, but it becomes like this self-gurgitated paintings of paintings that you're lacking. What is your passion in life? What is it, because whatever you're passionate beyond painting informs the work that you make. And if you figure that out at a young age, you are so ahead of the curve in so many ways. I mean, I know for me, and in graduate school, I had a strong desire of metaphysics, and there was no, I didn't have a mentor to help bring in what I wanted to do with serious art with that. It took me another decade. So kudos to you. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So I would you like to dive in and look at some of who you are a little bit? And I want to share my screen and just kind of talk a little bit about Topher here. So I'm going to go ahead and make this a slideshow that's bigger. And, the first image I have here, tell us about what this is and where this is and when this was.
Oh, this is such a good memory. I was on top of Mount Inspiring in Wanaka, New Zealand, directing a very big commercial with my friend Darren. He was a producer, and it was the first time that I was directing from a helicopter. So I hope that we come back. Let's circle back and touch on how I decided to start sharing my art with the world just 3.5 years ago, because prior to that, it had been all about film. Okay. But this moment, this was a culmination of all my dreams come true. I was directing a wonderful spot that I came up with the concept for. And I'm in the back of a helicopter. I've got my face in a viewfinder. The cameraman is like hanging out the side of the helicopter with bungee cords. And the helicopter going like this, and my face is in the screen. And it was a culmination of a decade of hard work to get to this moment.
Wow. So did you find that the landscape in that was inspiring of how, because I know you paint landscapes and just this broad view of how you take in the world? I think that's what I'm hearing. Like it's like a different perspective.
It is. And the film world really shaped me as an artist. Right?
Yes, I can imagine. And now tell me about this, why you might have chosen this image.
Another image.
A little blurry.
Really happy.
Yeah.
I was in northern Thailand. I had just gotten through my divorce, which we'll talk more about, because I guess the whole kind of premise of this conversation we're having is how every little moment leads to something else.
Yes.
So this was me in Thailand. Look at that little baby girl elephant. She was just amazing. I was working on a elephant sanctuary where they rescued elephants in northern Thailand in a place called Chiang Rai. And I adore animals so much, and I just fell so in love with these elephants. I would swim with them in rivers.
Nice.
I would make food for them. And later, I would paint that little baby elephant that I'm standing beside and put her in a painting that I did called Elephant Eyes.
Oh yeah, so I have one. We'll get to that. And I also have another piece of an elephant that you did that really intrigued me that I'm going to be showing. Now this looks like joy. This looks like joy.
So that little guy beside me, his name is Oliver, and that's my son. And we were in Kauai. Hawaii is a really special place for me. I think, Lauren, when you and I met, when we were doing a panel together, I was in Hawaii, I believe, right?
Yes, yes. You had just, it was really super early and you were just like, here I am. Yeah. And also being a multidimensional artist, it seems like Hawaii is a huge part of your life from what I'm gathering with the art and what we see. And you were mentioning you're writing a book. Does it have anything to do with Hawaii at all, or talk about that?
Yeah, it does have a lot to do with Hawaii. In fact, the title in and of itself is look at what I got here. It's called Aloha Love.
Aloha Love.
So aloha is a beautiful word that has got multiple meanings. It means hello and goodbye.
Mm-hmm.
So this book that I'm writing, inspired by a lot of my time in Hawaii, but more so inspired by love of oneself, love of a partner, love of a child, love of art, love of nature, love for yourself as a man, because a lot of men don't really understand the power of that. So it's a really neat book. So are you talking like the book that you're writing is the interconnectedness of everything brought back for gratitude and creativity? I mean, does creativity, of course, fall into that? Very much so. It's very kind of Catcher in the Rye. It's got, like it's a visual book. I'm incorporating, a lot of my paintings, like this one behind me. This is Tetons National Park, and so for me, as we've talked about, it's all about experience. So I was at that national park, and I'm an open water swimmer. I'm an athlete, and I decided to swim in the middle of at the start of winter in Jenny Lake behind me. And cold, very cold, very cold. And I had the tour boats stopping and being like, "You're crazy. We haven't seen anyone in the water, for months. What are you doing? Are you okay? Do you need help?" And I'm like, "No, no, no." And it was and then I got out of the lake after this wonderful 3-mile swim, and there's my son. And behind him I saw this amazing, what I thought at the moment to be a puppy golden retriever, but turned out to be a baby grizzly. Oh, so, my goodness. It's the book incorporates all these stories. And then also that painting behind me is going to be featured in the Jenny Lake Visitor Center. The one you were just showing. Yeah, which I think we'll get to if I get through these slides. Let's see. This is Elephant Eyes. And getting back to the book for just a moment. How far along are you? Like, how far into the book? Are you almost done? Are you? I mean, the way things are going right now, Lauren, I'm so busy with my art. It's hard to find time to do my book. I hear you. I'm writing a book myself, and it's not that easy. So tell me about this. This is the Elephant Eyes, correct? Yeah, this is inspired by that previous photo we saw of the baby elephant. Right here. When you look into the soul of an elephant, you're looking through these beautiful long eyelashes. So I wanted to capture the power, the grace, and the beauty of the elephant. So this is one of my biggest paintings that I've done so far. And it's got a kaleidoscope feel. Is there any meaning to that for you, of the fractals, of the color that you utilize in expressing, let's say, an animal? Yeah, because I think animals' lives are so rich, and their souls are so rich and so encompassing. And I think that nature and animals are life, and the color is life. So yeah, good. Okay, we're gonna dive a little into your influences, a little bit of some pieces that you chose. So this is Matisse's Luxury Common Pleasure, which was sort of done in the turn of pointillism. Tell me why this image. I always find it so intriguing when I limit the amount of imagery an artist chooses, and so I always think it's poignant, even if they don't think it is. Well, first of all, Matisse's sense of color and rhythm really speaks to me. The flow of this piece is just phenomenal. It's all kind of flowing upward into this sky that's just so magnificently composed. The pointillism is interesting to me, but it's more so the use of color and rhythm in this piece, and composition. I mean, look at how
There's one diagonal here that has movement that seems to tie the two together. You know, I don't know. You get this diagonal here, and then I don't know if you can see my pointer. Whoops, I went ahead of myself. Oh, now I really did. But there's two diagonals going in separate directions, and I'm like, wow, that this composition is complicated, even though you might not think it is.
Right, and that's a good point. And there's actually a cloud above that, Lauren, if you look, kind of continuing that kind of momentum upward that matches the sand. So you hinted on something really special, is that some people see, you know, my work can be as complex or as basic as you want it to be. You know, it's often like in film, what you don't notice that makes the emotion of the art come through.
Yeah. Let's see. And then I chose this one coming from, because it's more static. And I wanted to know if you wanted to talk about that and where the movement is and the simplicity of this particular piece of yours, Olympic National Park, and the complexity of this piece, and then the environment of this piece. that was a mouthful.
That is I guess I just wanted to capture the rhythm of the mountains, and almost as if they were chords of a piano, and the motion of the lupins pointing upward towards the sky, and the kind of the balance of the colors, I think, is quite nice in this, and I don't know if you can see it, but there's actual stars in there as well. And stars seem to be something that I really gravitate towards in my work.
I do if I look. Yes, I see it. It's very subtle. It's a nice touch.
Thank you.
Okay, before any other comments on this piece that you'd like to say about Olympic National Park?
You know, we all, as artists, we have our favorite pieces and our not so favorite pieces. You know, this is not one of my favorite pieces.
I chose it, yeah.
But you know, often galleries have been like, up until recently, I decided to stop telling galleries, no, don't take this piece, it sucks. Right, and I used to have people come to my studio and see work that they really like, and I'm like, no, that's not great. You don't want that. But the truth is that it's often the work that doesn't resonate with us that can resonate with the viewer or a gallery in a different way, and we just have to let it go.
Yes.
Right?
Doesn't mean it won't resonate with somebody else. That's correct. Okay, here's another piece you chose, a Matisse, which is later in his career, 1949 versus the earlier work, which I think was done in the early 1900s. So he's been painting at this point for a while. Gosh, Lauren. Okay, what do you want to say about the Lute?
I adore this painting.
Tell us why.
The upward momentum, kind of like in what I did in Mount Olympic National Park, not comparing the two paintings or me anywhere close to Matisse, but I love the rhythm of this piece. I love the simplicity and the colors, and I mean, it's just what, 3 or 4 colors. That's it. It's beautiful. It's Matisse's work has always really touched my soul so much, and it's almost as if her hair is green too, matching the leaves, which I quite like.
Yeah, the way he's used complementary colors is pretty fantastic. But there is something in this that I see that resonates in your work. The ability to take, you do it with exterior. You know, this is an interior, meaning interior space, but but the pattern in her dress, the pattern of the wallpaper, the pattern of the rug, they're all different, but they're singing in harmony together. There's another painter named Bonnard who also did that with interiors of wallpaper and wearing fabrics. And the way that you've done, which I just think is superb, and we can talk about this piece, Maroon Balls, another one I chose, you know, the pattern of the mountains versus the change of focus at the very forefront, and then the trees. It's just this jump, and I think it's so eloquently done.
Well, thank you, Lauren. Maroon Bells, and it's bells, not balls, but
Balls. It's not balls, it's bells. Or is it balls? It's balls.
This is my most popular piece that I've done.
What year did you do this? The original.
Well, we haven't even touched upon that.
I know we haven't. We're going to get to the technique here in a moment, which will touch upon how you do your
all my work is relatively
limited
new.
prints. Yeah.
It wasn't until 3.5 years ago that I decided to start showing my work publicly. So Maroon Bells was done in 2019.
Okay. Okay. Now tell us how walk us through a little bit of your process.
You know, I'm really inspired by photography, given my background in filmmaking. So often I base my work off of photography. I use the computer. I worked for Apple. I worked for Electronic Arts. So technology is a big part of my process. So essentially, I use the colors that I see in nature, often that we don't observe in nature, and I kind of accentuate them. I try to capture the hues of them and do them in a kind of broad strokes, like Tetons, very representation.
Like the one behind you. Yeah.
Yeah. So
or here. Yeah.
That's me at work. Yeah.
So when you say methods that haven't been around very long, what does that mean? What does that mean?
Well, first of all, I'm always pushing the boundaries, right? Because I am kind of a new artist. Like I've decided to be, I've been painting since college, but I just started to decide to share my work, and it's really taken off. So I'm always pushing the boundaries. For example, back here, this is how I'm now looking at my art and doing things. Now I can't see you, but I can see like this oh wow, amazing painting that I'm working on of Telluride right now. And I can look around and immerse myself in it and spot imperfections that I need to fix. This is a technology that no one is doing.
What is that? What is that? What?
Oh, this is the future. This is the metaverse. This is virtual reality. It's amazing. I'm able to navigate and to move around in an immersive kind of tremendous world. I mean, I can look around, and I've been able to figure out ways to view my art in different ways. I mean, my art's naturally big, but I mean, this looks like it's like 80 feet. And so I'm always trying to use technology to push the boundaries of what I'm doing, from previewing my work and immersing myself into my environment through this, or by the way that I print on aluminum substrate, you know, and I'm always trying to push and experiment and play, and it's flipping great.
So you have an image which inside that, I'm ignorant, that device,
The metaverse,
which is kind of why when we were having a discussion, I was talking a little bit about the camera obscura of David Hockney, who wrote the book Secret Knowledge, about how maybe 400 years ago, artists have always been using devices, right? And that camera obscura, and I want to talk about this painting here. This is a phenomenal painting, but just to finish my thought, and we might actually circle back to it. For the lay person, there's a movie called The Girl with the Pearl Earring. It's Scarlett Johansson, and then Colin Firth plays Vermeer, the painter, and they show this camera obscura where the artist can look in, see the image, and it gets reflected back, and that they can actually draw in some of the details. Van Eyck might have used it. Because of some things that were backwards. Do you know about this more than I might? That was the old technology, and now we're moving into the new technology. So I guess what I'm getting at is, here you are on the cutting edge. You're kind of using the tools that we have here in 2022 almost. And it's fantastic. Okay. I love Telluride. This captures the feeling when I'm in Telluride really well. You feel very minute when you're looking up, especially as well. Jackson Hole is another favorite place of mine. When you fly in and the Grand Tetons are right there and you feel this tiny, really tiny. Talk about the conceptual or the magnificence or the feeling of this for yourself.
Well, it wasn't until about 6 months ago that I had experienced Telluride, and it is an experience like what you're talking about. It's this amazingly beautiful old cowboy town nestled in these mountains that seem to have this amazing upward momentum towards the top of the sky, almost touching the sky. And I'm really thrilled. This is actually the first time that this painting has ever been seen right now. It's almost done. This is kind of a work in progress, but this is going to be debuting at Slate Gray Gallery in Telluride in March.
Nice.
This is going to be this. So I'm right now debating, do I do my 45 by 90 inch on metal substrate, or do I take a leap that I've been wanting to take a leap with and go 120 inches by 60 inches?
Yes.
On a different kind of substrate that I've never messed around with, called Lumichrome.
So I want to talk to us about how you make these. I think this is a good place. When you talk paintings and they're really large, how are you getting them onto your surface?
Well, for the metal substrate, I'm using a process called sublimation. I like to say that my works are sublimed. The way that sublimation works is, and let me know if you can't hear me, because I'm going to go back to this painting and so essentially I create the work on the computer, right? And using the virtual reality and just seeing the whole big image, because this process, especially when you go this big, is expensive. So I need to make sure that my work is perfect. And by nature, I'm very spontaneous. In fact, I have a very strong comedy improvisation background. So by nature, I'm spontaneous, but my work is not really that spontaneous. My work is very calculated and methodical, and the process in and of itself, arduous. Once I get a piece that's absolutely perfect, it's printed onto a piece of transfer paper. It's as big as the aluminum. The transfer paper is put on top of the aluminum. That's my dog. Her name's Finland. So it's put on top of the transfer paper. The transfer paper is rich in oils and minerals, and it's laid on top of the metal through the process of heat, about 400 degrees, and pressure. The oils from the transfer paper permanently become part of the metal substrate. Okay. It's a molecular combination that happens. And then once that process happens, I like to coat it with a shiny resin finish.
I see it. It's got a glare to it. Yes. So you never take a paintbrush with paint.
Oh, I do.
Oh, you
I,
did. Okay.
yeah, but you know, there is a gallery in Aspen that's really wanting to show some of that work. But
That doesn't, yeah, I guess what I'm asking is within this process itself, when you say you have an original versus then having prints that you make, the original is just the first one that comes out through this process? No, see, that's where I'm confused.
yeah, not necessarily. And again, I can break the rules, right? We all
Yeah.
can. We all
Yeah,
need
of
to
course.
remember that. So
Yeah, we do.
essentially, there's a lot of paintings that I've completed. I've completed over 70 in the last 3 years. There's a
Mhm.
lot of my work that I've never seen before printed. Often I will sell limited editions way before the original sells. The price point obviously is a lot less than the original. The limited editions are smaller. So my originals are 45 by 90. My limited editions are 30 by 60. And they're much more accessible in terms of price. So there's no differentiation between a limited edition and an original. It's the same damn piece of work. There's nothing different.
Gotcha.
So I had a lot of really smart people advising me on how to go about this system. One of the best pieces of advice that I got was do not do over 25 limited editions ever. When you're sold out, you're sold out. So that's created a secondary market for me. For example,
That's actually good advice. Yes.
yeah, it
For
is.
marketing. Yeah.
And so like maroon bells or the balls has completely sold out, and there's now an aftermarket for not just the original, but there's a secondary market for the limited editions now. That's
Yeah.
So yeah.
Very good. Thank you for that. That was perfect. Okay, now another influence I have here, David Hockney, The Arrival of Spring. These are iPad drawings that he's now doing in his 80s. You know, he's had a luscious career of painting and photography and breaking boundaries with manipulating images of photography. And now he's doing this. Can you talk a little bit about why you chose this for us to look at today?
Yeah, sure. When I first knew about what Hockney was doing, when I was still creating art just for myself and not showing it with people, I started messing around with my iPad. And so I would get my pen and I would just do this stuff on my iPad, and that's how I started out.
Show us. Let's see what you're just doing.
I just pulled out my iPad to so I started as soon as I learned about Hockney doing this stuff. I decided to start playing around with things. This was when I was working for Electronic Arts in the technology sector, producing video games. I would often decide, I often played around with just the iPad and my sense of color from my education at Syracuse and sense of composition. People really liked the colors that I used, and so they would touch my work, even when it was on acrylic on canvas. And you don't touch art, but people did touch my art. So I had to figure out for my work that people call yummy, how do I make it resilient? And that's how I got to metal. And in the next kind of evolutions of what I'm going to be working on. So Hockney's work really influenced me. Seeing that digital art can be taken seriously, and he was such a pioneer in that, and inspired me, and
still is in many ways. And you know, this gets to that book that he wrote in 2001 that we were talking about, of Camera Obscura, rediscovering the lost techniques of old masters. So here, you know, I could see where you would really resonate with Hockney as he goes into what can we use, what is here in not only the natural world, but the technological world, and blending them together.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then this is one of your pieces that really struck out. It was a little different, Enchanted. Tell us about this one.
Yeah, a lot of my work comes to me in dreams.
Ah,
And I manifest it. So often before I go to sleep, I'm not only saying I'm going to own a house in Maui in the next 3 years, but then I'm going further into the depths of my mind and I'm saying, well, what piece am I working on now and how can I make it better? And so this started out as a national park in the Sierra Mountains, North Sierra Mountain, I believe it was. And then I decided to start playing around with it. And in my dreams, the flow of these fern trees and so it's a obviously a very representational perspective of this dense forest. And it started to go so far from my reference photo collage that I created that I just decided to just do what was in my head during this dream. And so it just is, I'm glad you like it. Not too many people have seen this work.
it has a dreamlike quality to it. I mean, it struck out to me because it's not the classic landscape, and it just seems to have a whole other narrative that might be going on, which the dream aspect is right there. I appreciate hearing that story. And then this one I chose because the sky almost looks photographic, like it almost like a photograph, and then the play with paint down below, but that might not be the case at all.
It did another one that was inspired by a dream. A lot of my galleries were like, Topher, create some vertical work, right? Because with my film background, I see things in the aspect ratio of film horizontally. So I decided to flip my canvas, if you will, and change my perspective of the world. And so this was actually started out, another one that I did right after I did that prior painting called Serenity. The Enchanted piece of the forest was based off of a national park, and it just kind of it got too far from it that I decided to just kind of make it based off of the dream. Now the next piece that you showed, Serenity, was also based off of a dream, but it started out with a picture of Mount Rainier, and it just started kind of evolving and transforming into this very dreamlike state perspective.
And it has a Northwest feel to it. It really does. Yeah. I lived in Portland, Oregon for a long time. And when I would fly in, you just like fly over the tops and then go right down into the depths of clouds. And the sun's there, but you're all of a sudden, there you are. This is there. And this line, it's very graphic. You've got the peak of that horizontal line that separates the two imagery. And I don't know, there's something about this piece that is working for me. And okay, and this one is also very fresh, and it's called Fresh Tracks, huh?
Oh, there you go. Yeah, and Lauren, I've got 4 themed paintings about skiing that are really selling extremely well. And so I'm focused right now on creating pieces that are based off of like playing outside in nature. And this takes place in Vail, Colorado. That's the Gore Range behind. And I thought, when you get that fresh track, when you look down a mountain and then you just tackle it and ski or snowboard down it, it's like this trail of gold.
Nicely put. Very nicely put. Okay, this has got to be one of my favorite.
Oh,
It might be because of the cosmos, and the message that comes to me is the whales to me are ancient. They've got some of the biggest brains, I think, dolphins and whales. probably wiser than we are, smarter than we are, maybe, who knows what goes on under the water, that it's almost like the whale comes from the cosmos. And it's on the surface of the moon. It's like trippy.
It is trippy, and this was part of like my early work on aluminum and digital, and I did a whole series of like animals in space, like a giraffe with rockets coming out of its feet, and then this beautiful humpback whale coming out of the moon. And I also think one thing that whales have more so than us is spirituality, right?
Mhm.
There's
I
song.
think we have spirituality. I think that we have to work for it. Like we've lost it somehow. Some disconnects happened, and we can learn a lot probably from, this is my belief, from the dolphins and whales. I just wanted to interject that I don't think we've completely lost our spirituality. We've got to work to remember it.
I think you're right. It has been misplaced, and our connection to nature and to animals will help us to get in touch with it again.
Nicely said. Nicely said. I think I ended with this one. Just you're chatting it up here. Anything you want to tell us that you might be saying?
I was actually at a charity event, and Lauren, I feel so blessed, like, to have the kind of success that I've had in my career, and so humbled by everything that's been going on. There's a tremendous amount going on, and so part of my responsibility is not just a human being, or not just a spiritual human being, but as someone that's doing what they love. Part of my responsibility is to give back to my community. So I was at an event, and I was talking about how we can use what we're passionate about to give back to our community and the things that we care about. And this was an event for food insecurity in my hometown of Golden, Colorado, for an event for a nonprofit called Be Golden. So in just the last 3 years, I've raised over $50,000 for various nonprofits that touch my soul, and I will continue to do that. And the more success that I have, the more I'll be able to do that. But I think it is a responsibility, and something that we should all do, in whatever capacity we can. And if I'm able to use my art to do that, there is no better gift in the world. And so this is me talking about that.
That's beautifully stated. Yeah. That's yeah. So anything that we haven't touched on that you want to talk about?
Yeah, for sure. I want to talk about, I'd love to talk about two things. First, I'd love to talk about why is it that it took me so long to decide to share my work, and how sacred my work was. Because, and then the second thing I'm going to talk about, if we have time, is how all these moments in our lives can be conduits if we just choose to perceive them in that way, how everything builds upon itself.
Okay.
So sophomore year rolls around at Syracuse University, and I had this amazing experience of learning art from amazing people, and learning art history, learning about how important the masters are, and learning about composition and color. And then sophomore year rolls around, and I'm able to study filmmaking, and I go 220% into film, right, for the next decade. But during that decade, I learned the power of self-expression and art. And when moments would pop up, like the US embassy being bombed in Kenya 2 weeks after I left Kenya, or Al-Qaeda bombing the World Trade Center a day after I left, these moments that I couldn't understand how to verbalize and express in words, or in my film, or in poetry, or all the other multidimensional tools that I had in my palette, I would always go to painting. And I created, over the course of 2 decades, maybe 70 paintings that were extremely deeply personal, huge paintings on canvas, dealing with the heartbreak or the loss of life, and these were vulnerable paintings. Like this stuff is accessible and happy and positive, and that's where I am right now, right?
Mhm.
But when I was in Hollywood making films, I have this whole series of paintings that on canvas that I literally would paint and hide in my closet. So over 2 decades, no more than 15 people had ever seen any of my work. I was kind of ashamed of who I was and where I was at. And and it took me going through a really difficult moment in life, my divorce, and struggling with addiction, and then looking into the soul of my son, in his eyes when he was just 3 or 4 years old. When I was really in a dark place, I decided, okay, I want to be a role model for my son. I want to turn myself around and start to share myself and my soul with the world. So I had amassed this huge collection of work. And I called up a gallery and said, I'd like to show my work with you. And they're like, no, we're booked out for the next 2 years. Don't even, we're not even looking at people. I said, okay, well, I'd like to just bring in my work. They're like, no, I'll call the police if you do. And I said, okay, I'll see you in 15 minutes. And it was that moment when I set my paintings down in the gallery and they looked at it and said, this is completely different and transformative compared to, anything that we've seen. We want to show you, and you're really lucky. And it took that dark moment, for me to decide to put myself out there. That was just 3.5 years ago. And I've used exercise and meditation to get my head on straight and to turn my perspective around to celebrating nature rather than dwelling on the imperfections of humanity, if you will.
Yeah, well, it's very brave, and your vulnerability and authenticity is what I believe makes for fantastic art and communication of what it is you're doing. I think it's important to make work and not have it go out too soon. So it's almost like, if you think about it, it's divine grace. The timing was exactly what it needed to be. Exactly what it needed to be. Sometimes the best studio door, and I've said this in these interviews before, the best studio practice is a closed studio door for a while. So thank you, Topher. That was beautiful.
Yeah, thank you for allowing me the venue to share that.
Yeah.
I think
and now you're off into a different stage. You're in this joy capacity of joy and giving back, and the gratitude that gets reciprocated in the balance of life.
Yeah.
Was there a second part to that? Was there something?
There was a second part to that, and that's how everything led me to this moment that I'm in here right now with you.
Yeah.
Being an actor as a child, and understanding how to communicate and how to be animated but authentic and connect. My understanding of filmmaking and advertising allows me to succeed on Instagram, and to understand how to market myself. My work with electronic arts on the Sims 3 video game allows me the understanding of technology and how quick it moves and how to embrace that exact moment. My divorce and everything that I dealt with there led me to understand how to appreciate just being alive, and understanding that we can change who we are, and we can change our perspective at any given moment in life, and that is a gift. So everything leads to something.
would that be the advice that you would give to other artists out there? What you just said, or would there be something added if you were to give some advice to artists that might be struggling, artists that are at an impasse in their careers?
I guess the advice that I would give, and I think it's amazing what we're all doing, right? We're all opening our souls and our
Yeah.
hearts, and we're able to create and be creative and vulnerable and put ourselves out there. And if you're not making money, and you're having to hustle, and God knows I've had to hustle, and I've had some hard times too.
Yeah.
Just understand how special it is that you're able to do this, that you have no choice but to create. So savor it every second.
That was really well said. Thank you so much. Well, it's been such a pleasure just to have you here, and we're going to be putting links down on the bottom. When you get this video, you'll see it down below, and anything that Topher wants to add for the for his projects that he's working with preservation and land conservation, and of course his website. And if he comes up with something else, we will add it for you all. I'm Lauren Mantecon, and this has been Topher Straus, and I want to thank you all.